Burnout.
So burnout is a huge issue in the software development community, especially since remote working has become such a huge thing. And I feel like it's generally accepted that burnout is okay, but it's obviously not okay. Me personally, I haven't had burnout since about 2014. The last time I had burnout was because I was doing 2 contracts for 6 months back to back, and one of them was in somebody's office and one of them was remote. So I would be in somebody else's office doing work for another company, and when I had to have a meeting for that other company, I would then have to dash out to a coffee shop, disappear for an hour to have a meeting with them, come back, do some work for this company, and it just got really, really stressful and too much work, and it just led to burnout. And since then, I have done my best to avoid burnout, and so far I've been successful. And so I want to give you my top 5 tips to avoid burnout as a developer. Number 1, set boundaries. Now, this is easily the most important thing that you need to do. The problem with remote working in general is that oftentimes people find it really difficult to set boundaries. They find it difficult to have start times and end times because you work where you live. So when does work start and when does work end? And the fact that we're always on Slack all the time means that you're always getting messages. A lot of people have Slack on their phone. I have Slack on my phone, which means that you're getting messages when you're not at work. And it becomes really difficult to switch off from work and have, a time when you work and have a time when you are not working. So how do you set boundaries? So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you have a time when you are working and you have a time when you have stopped working. And by stop working, I mean you're not on Slack, you're not responding to messages, you're not responding to emails, you're not answering phone calls, you're just not working. And for some people, I know that will be quite difficult, especially because you might have already set the precedent that you are available outside of work hours and you work outside of traditional work hours. So you might find it difficult to set that boundary now, saying, hey, yesterday I was responding to your messages at 7:30 p.m., but today I'm not. So a tip to do that and not feel bad about it, and also have other people not think that you're ignoring them or not doing what you're supposed to do, is in Slack, you have do not disturb. You can set do not disturb mode to go on when you finish work and to go off when you start work. So I have do not disturb set up on my phone with Slack, which means at 5:30 p.m. every day, my Slack switches to do not disturb, which means if somebody sends me a message after 5:30, I don't see it until the next day at 8 a.m. when do not disturb switches off, which means that I don't have to respond. I don't have to worry about it. I haven't seen it at all. And the great thing about this is the person that's sending the message, when they send the message, they can see on their Slack that you are in do not disturb mode, which means they know that you're not going to see this message until tomorrow or whenever your next workday is, which means that there's no expectation that you're going to reply immediately because you haven't seen it. They're not going to feel like you're not responding to them or you're ignoring them because they will know you haven't seen it. And for people that send, messages that are not important after work and expect an immediate answer, there is the option on Slack for them to push a message through to you so it will go off on your phone. And for most people, when they see that they have to press that button to disturb you intentionally, they won't do it because most of those messages they'll know are not important. Maybe it's important to them, but it's not important to you. It's not important to the project. It's not important to the business. So they will leave you alone. So that's a great tip to help set boundaries. And the other thing is don't answer work calls on your personal phone, period. Like we have not Google Hangouts, what are they called now? Google Meetup. We have Slack. We have Zoom. We have so many different ways to talk and have calls and video calls and all that kind of stuff. And so nobody needs to be calling you on your personal phone. And the problem being, and I've seen this happen a lot, is when people answer calls on their personal phone, usually, again, for reasons that are not urgent, someone's just ringing you because they've decided they don't have anything better to do than to ring you and tell you that they found a bug. If you answer that call, the next time they'll ring you, they expect you to answer the call, and the next time and the next time. Whereas if you just don't answer the call from the start period and you make sure that it's inferred that you're only going to use work tools and work programs to communicate, you'll stop getting those calls on your personal phone. And that's one less thing that you have to worry about, and one thing that will help you set those boundaries of this is when I work and this is when I don't work. The second thing, which is really, really important, is you need to take time off. Now, for me as a contractor, taking time off looks like I do a contract, let's say it's 3 months or 6 months. And when that contract ends, in between that contract ending and the next contract starting, I will take time off. Maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's a month, maybe it's a couple of months. Generally, I like to go and travel. So generally it's more than a month, or at the least it will be a month. But I know that not everybody can do that. So if you are not a contractor and you can't take time off in between roles, maybe you're a permanent developer or you're in really long-term contracts, you need to make use of your holidays to make sure that you take holidays so you can have a break. But also you need to have a break during your workday. When we were all in the office, having a break looked like going to get a coffee or going to talk to your colleagues, you know, in the kitchen or whatever for 20 minutes, and you'd have regular breaks throughout the day. Working from home means, for me, going to get a coffee is literally going to the kitchen and coming back. It takes about 2 minutes. That's not a break. So you need to make sure you're taking breaks. So taking breaks could look like taking 20 minutes to go and, you know, maybe you go and sit down on the sofa somewhere and watch Netflix for 20 minutes. That's fine. That's taking a break. Or maybe you go for a walk. I prefer to go for a walk. I prefer to take the dog out for a walk. I could do that a couple times a day. Maybe you could take time out to go to the gym. That's another option. Whatever you can do to break up the work day so you don't spend the entire day just non-stop working. Tip number 3, don't work where you live. Now, this might sound super counterintuitive. Of course, you work where you live. We all are working from home right now. I'm working from home right now. But the difference is, when I say work where you live, is right now I am in my office. What I do in my office is work. That is it. So when I leave my office, I have left work. When I come back to my office, I am starting work. That way, anywhere else in the house does not remind me of work, does not make me want to pick up my laptop and do some work, does not make me want to send some emails or some Slacks, because I don't associate all of that with work. Now, some people don't have an office. Maybe you have a spare room. Maybe you can work in the spare room. Some people I know work in their bedrooms, which I like. If that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. But personally, my thing would be, even if you have to work in your bedroom, maybe you can go and work in that corner of the bedroom where you would never otherwise spend any time, which means that when you go to that corner of the bedroom, it's work time. When you leave that corner of the bedroom, it's not work time. Anything that you can do where you can work somewhere that differentiates this space from your living space, even if it is literally just being in a corner of a room where you normally would never be, which means that when you're there, your brain is like, okay, we're here to work. And when you leave, your brain is like, okay, we're not here to work anymore. Anything you can do to separate it so that you're not working where you live will make a huge difference. My fourth thing, and this might be a little bit controversial, but it's something that came to mind recently, is that you want to finish on time in terms of work. You want to finish the work you're doing and you want to finish it on time. You want to meet deadlines, but you do not get prizes for finishing early. So as developers, you probably have come across this situation where you're estimating some work for the next sprint and somebody asks you, how long is this going to take? And you say, right, you look at the work and you're like, okay, it's going to take 5 days to do the work. And your project manager says, all right, cool, we'll mark it down for 5 days. And then when it comes to actually do the work, the project manager's right, you've got 3 days to do the work because, you know, I promised the CEO that this work's going to be delivered by next week, which means that you have to get it finished in 3 days because QA need 2 days to test it. Even though you've already said it's going to take 5 days to do. Now, some developers in that situation, and I've been in that situation many times, would take that on board and be like, oh crap, we have to get this done quickly. And so now they're working flat out all day. They're working evenings. They're working weekends. They're trying to get it done as quickly as they can to meet this new arbitrary deadline that somebody just made up after you told them it's going to take much longer. And the thing that I would advocate to do is not do that. If you tell somebody it's going to take 5 days to do and they agree, and then they tell you you have 3 days to do it, that's just tough. That's not your problem. You can do the work in the amount of time that you can do the work during your work day. If the work has to go outside of your work day for you to do it, then I would absolutely push back against that and be like, listen, you can have the deadline of 3 days. If I get it done in 3 days, that's great. But my deadline is 5 days because I said it was going to be 5 days and you agreed to 5 days. So what you promised somebody else is not my problem. And I think if you can approach it in that way, and I know it's hard to do, but it's definitely the right thing to do, and nobody is going to get let go. I would hope, at least logically thinking, nobody's going to get let go from a project for not being willing to work outside work hours, especially you're not getting paid to work outside work hours because somebody decided that you should be doing things faster than you told them you could already do it. And then my final point on that, and I think this leads in nicely from point 4, is other people's job pressures are not your job pressures. And a lot of times developers will have pressure put on them by their manager because their manager is having pressure put on them by their manager because their manager is having pressure put on them by the CEO to get things done faster or quicker or nicer or whatever it happens to be. And a lot of developers will take on that pressure and take on that stress when that is not your job. Like, whatever your project manager has promised the person above them, who has promised the person above them, has nothing to do with your work. If you tell someone it takes this long to do something and they want to do it faster, that's tough. That's not your problem. Hire more developers and we'll get it done faster. Maybe. We all know that's not how it works. The key thing here is if you work hard during your reasonable work hours, that is all you can do. The rest of it is not your problem. Whether people are upset because things aren't being done fast enough, or people are upset because there's too many bugs, or whatever it may be, if you are working to the best of your ability inside the hours that you are being paid to work, then everybody else's stress is not your stress. And if you can avoid taking that on and just be like, listen, that's your problem. My problem is this code right here. Your problem is all the stuff that you're talking about. Then if you can let that go and just ignore it, you'll have a much better working environment. You'll feel much better about yourself, and you will be able to avoid burning out much, much easier because all of that stress will be alleviated and you can just focus on doing your job. You want to be responsible for what you are responsible for and leave the rest.